You ever have a moment where you stop, blink twice, and wonder if what you're seeing is actually happening? Well, it's happening. The Chicago Bears aren't just leading the NFC North, they're sitting on the throne of the entire NFC. Yes, you heard that right. The Bears are standing at the very top of the conference, and the rest of the league is staring up at them. Before we go any deeper, take a second to breathe that in. Because for the first time in a long time, this team isn't fighting for respect, they're demanding it. And hey, if you love getting Bears news that actually gets you fired up, make sure you hit subscribe, tap the like button, and smash that bell icon so you never miss the moments that matter. This channel is where the real fans stay connected. Now let's talk about how wild this climb has been. Chicago's rise wasn't just about their own wins. The Carolina Panthers unexpectedly gave the Bears a massive boost by knocking off the Rams in Week 13. That single result pushed LA down and lifted Chicago to the number 1 spot. If the postseason started today, the Bears would be sitting comfortably with the NFC's top seed. And as all of this unfolds, something else is becoming clearer every single week. This team isn't a fluke. The progress, the discipline, the belief, the entire take the North mentality is finally more than a slogan. It's real. It's visible. And it's powerful. I expected this team to take a step forward. I expected a playoff push. But to see them at number 1? To see them actually take the conference by the throat? That hits different. This is a team playing with confidence, purpose, and a hunger that feels brand new. Right now, the Bears and Rams both sit at 9-3. The Eagles trail just behind at 8-4. Tampa Bay holds the 4th slot, while Seattle sits at 8-3 with their game against Minnesota still unfolding as we speak. Everything is tight, everything is competitive, and yet, the Bears are the ones standing above the chaos. And this is only the beginning. Stick with me, because what comes next could change this entire. You know what makes this moment almost surreal? This is the first time since 2006 that the Chicago Bears have touched the very top of the NFC standings at any point in a season. 19 long years. Nearly 2 full decades without seeing this view, and now the 2025 Bears are standing there like they always belonged. Think about everything Chicago fans have gone through in that time, the rebuilds, the resets, the disappointments, the maybe next year conversations. And yet here we are, watching a team that has rewritten its own identity. A team that has stopped asking permission and started taking what it wants. And that brings up a question that suddenly doesn't sound far-fetched anymore. Why not the Bears? Why can't this team surge all the way into February? Why can't they steamroll the rest of the schedule? They've already taken out the Eagles, one of the toughest teams in the conference, and each week they show another level of growth. Another layer of confidence. Another sign that this isn't luck, this is legitimacy. Now let's talk about the ripple effects that pushed Chicago into this position. Carolina's gritty, weather-soaked win over the Rams in Week 13 didn't just shake the standings, it lit up the entire NFC picture. A messy field, pounding rain, and yet the Panthers found a way to knock off Los Angeles. Even Matthew Stafford breaking a long-standing record couldn't save the Rams from slipping. And while that game might have seemed distant, its impact landed squarely in Chicago. Suddenly the Bears weren't just climbing, they were standing alone. What makes the moment even more poetic is the shared history between these two franchises. Years ago, Carolina made the bold move to acquire the number 1 pick from Chicago, a decision that set off a chain reaction for both teams. They selected Bryce Young. Chicago collected the draft haul. And somehow, through all the twists and challenges, both franchises ended up exactly where they were trying to go. It took Carolina a little longer to find their footing, but now both teams are seeing the payoff of those decisions. And Chicago? They're seeing something even bigger, the top seed, the momentum, and a future that suddenly feels wide open. Stick with me, because the next part of this story takes an even more dramatic turn. When you look back at everything that came out of that monumental trade with Carolina, it almost feels unreal how much it reshaped the Chicago Bears. That single decision didn't just give Chicago a quarterback, it sparked an entire foundation for the future. From that move came Caleb Williams, the face of the franchise. Darnell Wright, solidifying the trenches. Tyrique Stevenson, already carving out his presence in the secondary. DJ Moore, the spark this offense needed the moment he arrived. Tory Taylor stepping in with immediate value. Luther Burden waiting in the wings with starter potential written all over him. Think about that. Nearly every piece that came from that trade is either already a key starter or on the verge of becoming one. That's not luck, that's a masterclass in roster building. Carolina made a bold move for their future. Chicago turned that same moment into a blueprint for dominance. And somehow, both sides are starting to see the results. Bryce Young is finally settling into who he was projected to be, and his improvement makes the what-if conversation between these two franchises even more interesting. But when you put the numbers side by side, the picture becomes clear. Caleb Williams, in just 2 seasons, has stacked over 6,200 passing yards, 37 touchdowns, and only 11 interceptions, along with nearly 800 rushing yards and another handful of scores on the ground. That's efficiency, explosiveness, and maturity packed into a young quarterback barely getting started. Bryce Young, with an extra year under his belt, has crossed 7,400 passing yards and 41 touchdowns, but he's also thrown more interceptions, 28, while putting up solid efficiency as a runner. He's playing well, no doubt about it, but Chicago unquestionably found the player who fits their identity, their energy, and their future. And all of it has led to this moment, the Bears standing at the top of the NFC. Now, here's the question that everyone has been asking: if the Bears and Rams both sit at 9-3, why does Chicago hold the number 1 spot? The answer is simple but powerful: strength of schedule. Chicago's path has been tougher, their opponents stronger, and overcoming that gauntlet gives them the tiebreaker that matters most. That's why they're sitting on the NFC's throne today. The facts don't just favor the Bears, they validate the entire journey. Stay with me, because the next part shows why this rise feels like something bigger than just a good season. What makes this Bears run even more unbelievable is how it started. Think back to the moment the team fell to 0-2. The noise was loud, the doubts were everywhere, and people acted like the entire season had collapsed before it even began. Yet here we are, that same team is now 9-3, and those early losses feel like they belong to a different lifetime. Even the Ravens game, the one true outlier, felt more like an off day than a reflection of who this team really is. If a few moments had swung differently, Chicago could legitimately be sitting at 11-1 right now. That's how close this team has been to absolute dominance. And the Lions matchup? A complete statement. A reminder that Chicago isn't sneaking up on anyone, they're challenging teams and punching them straight in the mouth. That's where the Ben Johnson impact becomes crystal clear. This team didn't just improve, it transformed. It evolved. It took on a new identity that blends speed, confidence, and razor-sharp execution. And the deeper you look, the more obvious it is why they're sitting atop the NFC North and the entire conference. Let's break down just how explosive this offense has become. After Week 16, top 8 in 3 of the 4 major offensive categories. 6th in total yards per game. 15th in passing yards, trending upward each week. 1st in rushing yards, powered by the 1-2 punch of Kyle Manona and DeAndre Swift. 8th in scoring, and climbing. This is a unit that's not just good, it's balanced, flexible, and dangerous in every direction. But the real engine behind all of it? The offensive line. This front has been rebuilt with intention and intelligence. Veterans brought in to stabilize. Young talent developed the right way. Coaching tailored to strengths. Piece by piece, the foundation was laid until one day the switch flipped and suddenly everything clicked. Joe Thuney, Drew Dalman, Jonah Jackson, additions that instantly brought power and experience. Coaching that elevated Ozzy, Darnell, Wright, and the entire group into something far more cohesive than anyone expected. And now, it's paying off in real time. The clean pockets. The running lanes. The confidence. The identity. It's all coming together, and we're still only scratching the surface. Stay with me, because the next part shows just how far this foundation can take them. Take a look at what this offensive line has been doing lately. 3 sacks allowed from the current starting group total. Only 3 quarterback hits. And yeah, the hurries add up, but in today's NFL, pressure is inevitable. What matters is how a team handles it, and Chicago has a quarterback who turns collapsing pockets into highlights. Whether you call him Iceman or Houdini, he's making chaos look easy. What makes this leap even more impressive is where the team started. Penalties were a problem early in the season, messy, costly, and frustrating. But week after week, the discipline sharpened, the technique tightened, and suddenly the same line that once struggled is now one of the quiet strengths of this roster. And that brings us back to something that deserves serious applause: the construction of this unit. The additions weren't random, they were calculated. Drew Dalman bringing stability. Joe Thuney adding championship-caliber toughness. Jonah Jackson filling gaps with veteran control. Ben Johnson convincing Dan Rashar to step out of retirement and elevate this line even further. And years earlier, taking a chance on Darnell Wright, a move that looks better with every snap. But the wildest part? The quarterback streak that tells the real story of how well this offense is functioning. Matthew Stafford once held a run of 27 straight games without throwing multiple interceptions. That streak was snapped, and now Caleb Williams and Jalen Hurts share the top spot in the league with 28 consecutive games of protecting the football. That's not just talent. That's coaching. That's preparation. That's a system built to succeed. Ben Johnson's imprint is everywhere. Caleb Williams' growth is undeniable. And together, they've turned the Bears into a team nobody wants to face. So yes, the conversation becomes impossible to ignore. Why not the Chicago Bears? Why shouldn't this team chase the biggest stage? The wins are stacking, the confidence is rising, and they're tied for the most victories in the NFC, but clearly look like the most impressive of the bunch. And before we look ahead, there's another name that deserves attention, a coach quietly shaping one of the most important parts of this team. Stay with me, because this next piece explains why the Bears' rise isn't just explosive, it's sustainable. Sometimes the stats only show half the truth, and this Bears defense is the perfect example. On paper, the rankings don't jump off the page, especially when you remember they were missing 6 starters at one point. Sitting in the 20s for yards allowed, rushing defense, and points scored doesn't paint the whole picture. But the story behind those numbers? That's where everything changes. Because despite all the injuries, all the rotation, all the adversity, the Bears entered Week 13 as the takeaway kings of the NFL. 26 total takeaways. 17 interceptions. 9 forced fumbles. A turnover differential that sits at a jaw-dropping plus 17. That's not just good, that's season-defining. And it gets even more unbelievable when you look at the individuals leading the charge. Chicago holds 3 of the top interception spots in the entire league. Kevin Byard at the top. Nan Wright close behind. Tremaine Edmunds right in the mix. 3 different Bears in the NFL's top tier of ballhawks on the same defense. And then there's Darnell Wright, turning defense into chaos all by himself. 8 total takeaways, 5 picks, 3 fumble recoveries, more than entire franchises like the Jets, Giants, and Commanders. One player creating more turnovers than full defenses. That's not normal. That's not common. That's special. This unit is still young, still growing, still tightening the screws. And yet, with all the imperfections, all the missing pieces, all the challenges, they keep flipping the field and changing games. That's why this moment is so remarkable. That's why the Bears are sitting at the top of the NFC in Week 13. That's why the rest of the conference is suddenly paying attention. Nobody knows what next week brings. The league shifts fast, momentum vanishes quickly, and nothing is guaranteed. But right now? Walking into Lambeau as the number 1 team in the NFC? That's a feeling Chicago hasn't tasted in a very long time, and they earned every ounce of it. Stay with me, because the story isn't finished yet, and what comes next might be even bigger.